talking a little bit about fractions. Fractions are any number which are represented in this form, something above another, in which it shows a part of a whole. Okay, so part of a whole. So if I say 1 by 2, that is half, it means one part if you take the whole and you break it into two. So say for example, this can be represented in your like famous pizza pie example which everybody uses. If you take a pizza pie and you cut it into two equal halves, then 1 by 2 represents the shaded portion. So similarly, you can also take a pizza pie, cut it into 4 parts, okay, and 3 by 4 represents 3 parts that are then shaded. So that represents 3 by 4. I want to do the 7 by 8. You can do it yourself, but basically you take the whole, you divide it into 8 parts and you shade 7 parts. So a fraction represents a part of a whole. Now coming to how fractions are written, fractions are generally written in this form: x, a bar, and a y, where x and y are numbers and the only condition is y is not equal to 0. Okay, if y is equal to 0, like I said, we come to a wicked situation in mathematics. It is not allowed, but why it is not allowed, I will come to it a little bit later. Now, as regards the names for these two things, there are very specific names for these two numbers, the above part and the below part. The above part is called a numerator and the below part is called a denominator. Now, numerator and denominator, I do not know the exact meanings in terms of the etymology, that is the history of the word. If you people find out, you can look it up, and if you find out what is the exact meaning, you can let us know. But one challenge is to remember where the numerator is and where the denominator is. Okay, and I remember a mnemonic, a memory key that was told to me by my father when he taught me about fractions in middle school. He said you abbreviate the numerator into NR and you abbreviate the denominator into DR. And he said that you can think of them as the doctor and nurse in a hospital. The doctor has his office on the ground floor and the nurse has her office in the first floor. If the doctor requires the nurse to help him, then he calls her and she has to come down the steps to meet the doctor. So for me, that worked very well. The fact that I remember it maybe more than 25-30 years later seems to suggest that that was a good mnemonic. It's not very important to know which is the numerator, which is the denominator, and exactly know where is where in most situations. Like for example, if I ask you to represent 7 by 8 as a pizza pie, you don't need to remember what is the numerator and what is the denominator. All you need to understand is that I divide it into 8 parts and shade 7 parts. But sometimes in the textbook, there are some questions in which they say refer to the numerator and refer to the denominator. They say there are two fractions in which the denominators are the same. How do the two fractions compare, or will you be able to then say which is the larger one, which is the smaller one? Yes, in those kinds of situations, just for your comprehension, just so that you understand what is being said, the question of numerator and denominator become important. Are there any questions regarding this at this point of time?